So we have an interview with Lucky and Chris from Okey Systems. Now, I've covered the launch that Chris announced last week of Okey, along with the SMS rerouting hack that we saw, which generated a ton of press. So this is a chance to delve into a little bit more detail about what Okey Systems is getting up to. So, Chris, Lucky, thank you so much for taking part. Please introduce Okey Monitor, please.
Right. Thanks for having us on here. Okey Systems is more of a collaborated a security group that we're bringing new products out of to solve problems that just haven't been solved yet.
Gotcha.
So.
Understood. So how are you achieving this monitoring of people's SMS accounts?
Well, there's a couple ways that we're doing this, and we're making it more advanced. So, one, we wanted to disclose the problem, but we didn't want to disclose it without having a solution that individuals can at least monitor their own services and also not charge them for that. At the same time, we're letting 1,000 flowers blossom, so to say, in creating products around this where we can generate revenue in different ways that can solve the problem on the other side of it.
Understood.
I mean, initially this came to probably because one of my numbers got hijacked unintentionally, and it was gone for 3 days. I didn't know because I have iMessage.
Yep.
Meanwhile, there's law enforcement I was communicating with on some cases we were working on, and all their messages went somewhere else, and I had no idea, and that was a problem.
Yep.
And so, a response. I mean, prior to our disclosure, you could have taken anyone's number. Doesn't matter if they're law enforcement, if they're in the government or anyone. They could pretty much take anyone's number. And so one of the kind of outcomes from the disclosure was we wanted to make sure we worked with everyone that we possibly could to give forewarning beforehand.
Yeah.
And also have that solution available for individuals to use at no cost to them. And I really mean that. We're not using their data for anything at all.
Yeah.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But traditionally, if you're not paying for something, you're the product, but that's not how we are operating.
Understood. No, that's clear. Now, of course, SIM swap has been widely reported, but this is a new one, this SIM rerouting. Is there any more information you can share around how it works? Because this one took me by surprise.
Well, one thing that we're adding to our monitor service is the ability to monitor SIMs for different product sets that are to come to market.
Mm-hmm.
But if you SIM swap someone, you're essentially taking their voice and their messages.
Yeah.
You're taking their phone.
Yeah.
Whereas taking their whole cell service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this issue, prior to disclosure, you could take someone's cell phone and they don't know, and now you're getting their one-time passcodes, are able to access online accounts that are asking you to add your cell phone as a trusted device, and then put it back, and the victim would never know.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the update on what has happened since then. But
cool.
That's kind of the difference between these two kind of things. And one thing we wanted to make sure, we do provide an SMS service through a different company, but we didn't want to use any of our actual access or contracts we have to violate anything. We didn't want to use anything that we had to reproduce this and demo it. And so when that other company, I don't even remember their name, I felt horrible that they got
Sakari
so much. Yeah. We didn't even know who they were. That's not an insult or anything. I just was never looking. We found them within 2 minutes of looking. So it was
when we first went to Vice, we had permission from another provider to demo this.
Mm-hmm.
And right before we went to demo, they revoked our permission. So so we were like, all right, well, we'll just find someone else. I'm sure someone else has a text enablement or something, because we've seen it all the time about, ZipWhip has a text enable your business landline or whatever. So
exactly.
We could probably find someone that does this. And Sakari unfortunately had unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, had really good SEO on Google. So they came up on the first page and let us sign up for a demo account with basically nothing. And
Gotcha.
yeah, we went to go text enable a number, and that option wasn't available. So like I emailed support and I'm like, hey, what's the deal with this? And they're like, well, you have to go to the paid version. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, then I'll throw $16 at it. And then yeah, we demoed with Vice, and like, before Vice could even ask anything, we had already started intercepting their text. So
Yeah, and but keep in mind, we have permission to do all this. We did have like legitimate LOAs and stuff,
Yeah.
but it was a matter of like those LOAs submitted, like could have been anything, and that company did do a great job of responding to the issue before anyone else.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of respect for them.
They also refunded my $16 for some reason. I think they may have thought I was fraudulent, but I was like, all right, so I guess I demoed that for free.
Interesting. So just stepping back, why aren't there checks and balances around this? I mean, why isn't this like regulated given the critical importance of SMS?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a problem like caller ID. It's just like normal to the nature of the business, the way things are.
Okay.
And so they're trying to do this shaking and stir thing with caller ID.
Yeah.
And we've always broken or brought to light the vulnerabilities of people trying to provide a caller ID authentication service. And so we're kind of waiting to like address that, because I'm pretty sure we can address that. But it's just a normal function of business of like moving your SMS. But it's also a separate route than like what your voice is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Well, his question was, why isn't it regulated? And that comes down to some FCC policy decisions that basically the FCC has stated that SMS text messaging is an information service and doesn't fall under Title II. So that's not always been the case, but it has been the case recently, and that's kind of what opened the door for NetNumber to allow this type of SMS routing.
Gotcha.
As a third party. They're basically a third party database that says, hey, if you want to route your text to this number, route it here. And then they allow anyone to update their database, was kind of what the issue is.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So,
and I don't take the position of like supporting regulation or not supporting regulation. I think the market can fix itself.
Okay.
That's just things that are brought to light in a responsible way, which we've seen a good response to this since our disclosure.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's clear. I mean, it's how the industry responds. So I mean, the US is a bit of a special case because of the CTIA and the sort of FCC sort of taking, so you've got two heads there. One an industry body, one the actual regulator. When we look at other markets, like in Europe, the regulator controls both the voice and the messaging. Is, the SMS rerouting we've seen here in North America, is that possible in other markets?
It is possible in other markets and countries. However, NetNumber only allows it in country code +1 area region. Okay. But that you're focusing on that question focuses on a good thing though, because not only was this able to be done in the US, we also tested it in Barbados, which happens to be in country code 1.
Yeah.
And Barbados is an independent sovereign nation, so like they're not FCC regulated. They they have their own telecom regulation authority.
Exactly.
And then other countries within +1 were also vulnerable to this, like Canada.
Yep.
Canada has its own regulation, obviously, CRTC, I think it is.
Gotcha.
And other Caribbean islands as well. So I mean, it's not just a US centric thing per se, because there are other countries involved in this region where NetNumber offers routing for SMS.
That's clear.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a double-edged sword to like add to that, where it's like country, like international like markets, I would say is kind of behind in a sense, because there's not that kind of database available to accomplish what NetNumber has accomplished in the US, really.
Yeah.
For people to be able to like enable their own numbers. At the same time, like, I don't know.
Yeah. How do you secure it, right? Is the big question, because so far NetNumber has mitigated this by not allowing certain wireless carriers to be taken within the US, but other non-wireless numbers are still vulnerable. So some carriers are more equal than others when it comes to who they allow to be taken over and not.
Interesting.
I mean, as a consequence, like, we still have more testing to do, but as a consequence, like, their fix wasn't really a fix, a temporary thing, which I applaud them for, but it's a temporary thing that ended up breaking like LMP in sense.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. So looking at next steps, because I mean, this is a good example of, the risks, that are out there in protecting, a phone service, that consumers can't possibly know about. So what steps do you think regulators or, sort of mobile carriers should be taking to protect their customers from this? Because I mean, Chris, you highlighted that your number basically got rerouted because you were feeling a bit lonely because you were sending texts, but you weren't receiving any texts from people responding.
Well, actually, like, I was using iMessage with most of my contacts. I never even knew.
Gotcha.
Like, I didn't know, because iMessage like totally was independent of SMS.
Yeah, it was just that one particular party that wasn't using iMessage, and you didn't know why. Yeah, he didn't know why his text, why he wasn't getting texted back from that party.
That's interesting.
And this was a total it was nothing malicious that was done at all to me. It was a matter, I never removed it from the portal that I had ported the number out from to myself.
Okay.
And so it had gotten like given away or something in some bash that should have never happened.
Yeah, the VoIP carrier it was with ended up like rerouting it or something. So
gotcha.
Yeah, they weren't the texts weren't coming to his cell service after he had ported it out.
Gotcha. I understand now. That's clear. So I understand how the situation arose. But then, of course, that led you into, realizing that it was possible, and then implementing it, basically, showing the weakness that was with NetNumber. But as you've indicated, they have put a fix in place pretty quickly.
Well, it's not really a fix. It's something that just stopped everything when it came to mobile until they can have a fix. Because I mean, honestly, I think the fix is probably going to be within the next like 3 to 4 years in a blockchain type of solution that's very simplified to handle all these different services in a way that's like with check and balances on their own. I know what we're doing now is like, I know all these major companies that have two-factor authentication built in aren't going to rip it out. They can't.
No.
And I also know like they're not going to redevelop something to replace it with.
Yeah.
Because that's like the same amount of work type of thing.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of like stuck in this limbo state, whereas like the mobile phones are like stuck in a like complete state of not doing anything.
Yeah.
And that was our other angle of this that kind of like grew out of this. Like some people reached out to us and we kind of changed our model from this personal monitoring service to be able to provide two-factor authentication in a new way on the other side of it. So what we're doing now is being able to provide two-factor authentication service with limited code-based changes to our actual customer, so they can provide the service to their end user in a more secure manner. And like how we're doing that is when the end user submits their number to be a trusted device, we're taking a snapshot of all these different carrier settings, and then also like asking them, and additionally, for secondary notification points in the event that their device becomes no longer trusted.
Gotcha.
So then in the future, when any one-time passcodes are sent out, before they're sent out, we check against the profile that we've built if the device has still been trusted or not. And if it's not, then we contact the secondary endpoints as another measure. However, like a little juicy bit of info right here that no one knows yet, we're adding in the capability of changing out your primary delivery method. So the end user doesn't have to use SMS to receive one-time passcodes. They could elect to use like iMessage or some other service like Keybase or Signal, et cetera, instead.
Exactly.
We're building that in a way where it's like very like limited code base changes for our customers that we're going to be dealing with to replace that two-factor auth.
Yeah, exactly. And the time of life, I mean, two-factor has been depreciated by NIST, but it's just there, it's simple, it works because of SMS ubiquity. But there are a range of other technologies and services you can get today where you can use information around that link between the device and the network, so that you don't even need to do two-factor authentication to know that it's it is Alan that's on the phone. Telesign has something. Prove there's a number of providers that give that sort of score rating. And of course, I mean, back to the point you raised earlier, Chris, with blockchain. I know quite a few companies that are looking at the application of blockchain exactly in this space. And of course, linking it to self-sovereign identity, so potentially even the users could be empowered in this rather than it centralized.
I mean, that's exactly what we're working on with our current product offerings in the works.
Perfect.
Is like resolve the two-factor authentication method issue while like not creating a lot of new work for the customers that implement it and replace it. Gotcha. So the user experience is the same.
Yeah.
Like I know my mom's not going to use Okey. My mom's not going to use like Google Auth.
No.
While those apps make sense, my mom's not going to use it. And so we're working to like replace it without people noticing that it's replaced, in essence.
Yeah. No, I understand. It's trying to make the user experience as transparent as possible. So it's I said it on the CX Tech newsletter. It's almost like perversely adding security to make the user experience better. Which, let's face it, normally when you add security, it makes the user experience a damn sight worse.
Exactly.
Great. So I'm I'll be tracking what you're doing. So please keep me updated. I'm hoping for Tadsummit EMEA Americas in November, we'll get an update on all your escapades, as I'm sure, well, I know both of you are extremely busy given all the work this has triggered.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, Lucky and I have probably been working together on projects since like, I don't know, over 15 years now.
Yeah.
I like working with you.
That's great. Again, Lucky, Chris, again, thank you so much for taking the time. This was excellent. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
There's no time to waste.
Yeah.
Miami Power.